We went from starting out at 26,676, brought it all the way to 41,489, punched it through just one step further to 49,752.93. So if you're having a hard time with State Farm, just know that you don't always have to have a hard time with State Farm. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of What's Wrong with This Insurance Estimate. This is episode number 5, and I just want to start by thanking you so very much for the recent feedback and for all of your support with this series. And I want to ask if you would please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. You can find it if you're not watching this video on the YouTube channel by typing in insurance restoration training. And if you find that this video adds value to you, whether you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, please hit the like button. Please comment below. Please add any suggestions that you'd like to see us add into this series, or additional feedback or suggestions, or maybe advice on how you think, how you see that the estimates could be written better. We're always improving our estimates to keep up with the times and to keep up with the changes in the insurance restoration industry. And so let's get into it. And I just want to, the second thing I want to say, I want to ask really, is, are you just working off of the insurance proceeds? In other words, are you a contractor and you get hired by a property owner and you look at the insurance paperwork, the estimate that they've been issued by their insurance carrier, and are you just taking the adjuster's word for it and just working for the total that you see in the estimate and never asking any questions or anything like that, even if you see discrepancies? Like, is that how you're running your business? And if it is, don't feel alone, because there's a lot of contractors who are doing that and who have been doing that, or who have done that before. And there's a better way of doing things. So hopefully you can gain some insight and some knowledge from this here. So this is a State Farm estimate that was prepared for one of our clients, an insurance repair contractor in Pennsylvania, for a homeowner. And getting into it, we see that the total RCV starts out at 26,676.90. It's a roofing job, siding, other associated items, as you'll see. So we start by looking at the roof. It started as a, let's see, 3-tab shingle roof. I think it was 20-year, but we'll get into that. So we've got the remove the 3-tab shingles. And the first thing that I want to point out, as I do in the other videos, is one of the main discrepancies that you'll see with State Farm, and they're not the only ones, Allstate, other insurance companies, they don't like to pay for R&R on a lot of their items. So in other words, like you see line item number 2 here, this should be this should say R&R drip edge. So remove and replace drip edge, but it doesn't say that. As you see, it just says drip edge, meaning that they are only wanting to pay for the replacement of the drip edge, and they don't want to pay for the removal of the drip edge. So, and if you question them on that, a lot of times what their standard response is that the removal of the drip edge is already included with the removal of the shingles, even though it's not. It's not included with the removal of the shingles. The only thing that's included with the removal of the shingles is the shingles and the felt. And I'll give you that the nails should be included with that as well. And this is a thing that they do not just for drip edge, but valley metal, your pipe jacks, your vents, your chimney flashing, most of the items on the roof, really, aside from the shingles. A lot of times you'll see that they don't include the removal. So they have ice and water shield here. Item number 3, number 4. One of the things that I typically criticize and especially with State Farm, is that they don't a lot of times include the removal of the additional charge for the high roof. As you see, they have done here right from the very beginning. And going right from there, I would say that another typical criticism is that they don't include a waste factor for the replacement of that high charge. So here you see that they have removal of the high charge, replacement or a removal of the steep charge, and then the replacement of the shingles. It is 25-year, and then replacement of the steep charge here, and you see that it has the waste factor, even though it's not enough of a waste factor, but they do have a waste factor here. And then line item number 8, you see that they have a waste factor on their replacement of the high charge. So the chimney flashing there again, you'll notice it does not have an R&R in front of it, so they're just paying to replace it only. And sometimes you can get them to include the removal. Most of the time you can't with State Farm. It's just one of those things, like you can get them to cover like a code issue, a code upgrade, or you can get them to cover the appropriate amount of shingles, or you can get them to cover flashing itself. But the removal of it, it's one of the hard things to get them to bend on. Even if you resist and draw it all the way out, it's very difficult to get them to do. So you just kind of have to roll with the punches sometimes. And of course, when I say that, I'm speaking through the eyes of a contractor. So any of these things that I'm talking about in this video and in some of the other videos, it's just that it's just staying in the lane of a contractor. So there's a lot of other options of winning and claims. You could take the process through the appraisal, take a claim through the appraisal process. Of course, you have to have the property owner involved with that, and then they're pretty much the primary involved party with that. And then also public adjusters, you can refer out to public adjusters. Again, the property owner and laws and rules are different in all states. So, and I'm not at all an attorney, so you'll have to do your own research. But the property owner would have to hire the public adjuster. Some states like Illinois, you could actually be a contractor and a public adjuster. But so you could always refer the client out to a public adjuster, and if it goes out that route, or if it goes through an attorney, for example, then maybe you have a lot more leverage, or the property owner has a lot more leverage to be able to get the insurance carrier to cover each and every single item. But our strategy is to get in and get out, use great documentation, use the standards, use the rules, use the Xactimate software that they want to use, and use all of those things, use all the fundamentals that you have available to you to come out with the highest approval and within the fastest amount of time. So I always recommend exhaust all of that first before playing out those other options, because those other options can be a lot more timely. They're not bad options. They could just be, and that sometimes they're great. Sometimes they're the only option. So, but I'm an advocate of doing the work, doing the diligence, going through each and every item, using full documentation to get the totals higher, from the contractor's point of view. And when you're doing that, you can only go so far. You can't act as a public adjuster in a lot of states. You can't say things because they'll try to hem you up as acting as a public adjuster. So you have to walk a very delicate line, if you will. But anyway, continuing on, you have the flashing, no R&R there. Flashing pipe jacks, no R&R there. They're just replace only. Garage roof here. Remove the shingles. There's another layer. I think there was actually an additional layer that they missed altogether. Okay, drip edge, valley metal, no removal, just replace. And then the steep charge on the garage. Okay, then here's where we get into some of the meat and potatoes. So the front elevation, okay, remove and replace siding. Detach and reset exterior light fixture. So there's a lot of things missing here, as you'll see in our estimate. I'm not even going to mention those just yet. We'll just hold off until we go through our estimate. The house, the right elevation, same thing, siding, removal and replace. Rear elevation, left elevation, same thing, siding, remove and replace. They did a meter box manipulation charge for an electrician. Garage front elevation, siding, detach and reset light fixture, right elevation, remove and replace siding, garage rear elevation, remove and replace siding. Same thing on the left elevation, remove and replace siding. Debris removal, we have one little 12-yard dumpster. Okay, and that's the estimate. So again, to recap, we have a total RCV of 26,676.90. That's the original State Farm estimate. We then wrote an estimate. We redacted out the company logo and letterhead and all of that stuff there. Same uh, customer information, redacted that out as well. Put a little overhead and profit statement here because as you probably have noticed in the original State Farm estimate, there was no overhead and profit included, even though we had extensive work involved. So, and the old rule is three trades or more would get you overhead and profit no matter what. That's been outdated for a number of years now. Mostly State Farm's typical robot answer will be that the job has to reach a level of complexity and or coordination required of a general contractor to carry it out. And if you try to press them on that and try to get them to explain what that really means, it they'll say, well, it means that we think that you can kind of get this all done at one time, at the same simultaneously. And this job, just looking at their estimate, you can see that it's a lot more extensive than that. You have overlapping trades, trades that overlap. So you have the roofers are working, they cannot work at the same time as the siding contractors. So you might have five, six trades all on the exterior of a property, and they still turn you down for overhead and profit. So you know that the three trade rules out. So you have to try to make a case for the overlapping trades. That like, look, we had to work around the client's schedule. We had to have the siding guys in on different days and the roofing guys. We had to make multiple trips. We had to coordinate all of that effort. We had to finance the effort, pick up the materials, deliver, special order, all of those things. But I will tell you that most of the time, almost all the time, if you have interior damage on the property, that almost always kicks in overhead and profit. Notice I said almost because it's not, and I don't mean that they're just going to give it to you, when the initial adjuster goes out. It's a process that you have to ask for a lot of the times, and you have to demonstrate why you're asking for it. So there's no simple black and white answer on this. There's no special rulings or laws that a contractor can really rely on. And I hear guys say, well, they have to pay overhead and profit even on single trades because it's included in their policy, in their contract. And that may be true, my friends, but again, we're just contractors, right? So if you're an attorney or a public adjuster or someone else listen or a policy holder, and you're watching and listening to this, then you have more leverage, you have more leeway to talk about policy and to be thinking about the policies. But from my vantage point, again, looking through the eyes of a contractor, if you will, then I have to look at it as, representing my clients who are contractors, I have to look at it as I have to stay away from all the policy issues. So it doesn't mean that I don't care or I'm not cognitive of those issues. But what I'm doing is I'm focusing on the dirty details of the job, the estimate itself. So I'm just documenting everything. I'm making a case. I'm listing the facts. And so, sometimes overhead and profit can be gained by submitting all of your invoices that your subcontractors bill to you, and you can redact the prices. Like, you don't need to show them what you paid them, and that works a lot of times too. So now Liberty Mutual and Safeco, they're not currently paying overhead and profit on the roofing items, even on interior jobs. So you might have interior work, and they're not paying overhead and profit for. They'll pay for the overhead and profit of all the interior and all the other trades, but not for the roof itself. I don't see that standing for a great long while, but I'm not going to get into the politics of the issue on this video. But will just keep your eyes and ears open for that, and we'll see what happens. But other than that, with interior work, if you have a water spot, even a small water spot on the inside of the property, that needs to be removed and replaced. The insulation dealt with, antimicrobial agent applied, texture fixed, the entire ceiling dealt with and painted, all the fixtures detached, reset, floor covered, masked, perimeter of the ceilings masked and taped. If the spot is touching the wall or even close to the wall, then you have to start painting the wall, not just one wall, but all the walls on a continuous run, detach, reset blinds, mirrors, towel bars, shelves, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then you have the casing of the windows and doors to either tape or paint. So that is an overhead and profit all day long, right? And so even if it's in a bathroom, so they hardly ever give it if it's a small overhead and profit, and even if it's extensive, they try to hold back, kind of make you go through the hoops of asking for it. But it's not the hardest thing in the world to get accomplished, but there's no magic formula. It is a hit and miss adventure. All right, sorry for the delay there. Moving forward here, and got a little sensitive scroller here. Okay, so the roof. Remove ridge cap. You'll notice that mostly in the bold items, we have show the differences. Remove the ridge cap. A lot of times they don't want to pay for the ridge cap, right? Remove the steep, remove the high, remove the valley metal, remove the drip edge, remove and replace the flashing pipe jacks, remove and replace the chimney flashing. And notice the chimney flashing is R&R. We have the ice and water shield. We have 30-pound felt. We have step flashing, valley metal, drip edge, replace the shingles, replace the high charge, replace the steep charge, replace the ridge caps, replace seal and paint the trim, remove and replace the fascia, prime and paint the roof jacks. Okay, so a lot different. Our estimate you see is much, much different than the adjuster's estimate. And I also want to say too that we've had this now for a couple weeks, but we've started adding into the footnotes code information. So the proper way, and we're going to start getting into the code game a lot more in these future videos. So stay tuned. But essentially, it comes down to you need to find out where the job is first. Like, what jurisdiction is it in? Is it like what city is it in? It might be in an unincorporated like county municipality, right? So you find out first where that is. Look up their building department code enforcement, city building department codes. Sometimes you can Google that information. You should be able to find a local city building department with some information. Most of the time, it can be found online, and you should see pretty quickly that city has adopted either one that particular state's code adoptions, or it'll tell you right away that they've adopted the IRC either 2009, 2012, or 2015 codes. So, and of course, that's important. I told you earlier, don't worry about the policy, but you do need to worry. You do need to make sure that the client has O&L coverage, which is ordinances and laws. So it's a code upgrade coverage that's available in most policies, but not always. So you do have to be careful. But provided that they do have code upgrade coverage, then the insurance carrier has to pay for the job to be done according to code. And so what we do is we find out where the job is, and they'll say they've adopted, say 2015, for example. If they've adopted 2015, then we go right to the 2015 codes, and find out what they have to say. So a couple of things that they have to say are that the flashings, and including flashing for pipe jacks, vents, chimney flashing, a lot of different items, all of the soft metals, the flashings, are not to be reused if they are damaged, deteriorated, and or rusted, right? So a nail is through the flashing, that's damaged. There's any rust at all, that's rusted, deteriorated. If it has bends, it's compromised, it's bent up, or it's not seamless, that. So a number of those different items uh, are reasons why you don't reuse the flashing. Another code issue is that the roof has to be done according to the manufacturer specifications. So, find out who it is, that like your shingle manufacturer, if it's GAF or if it's Owens Corning or whoever it is, there's manufacturer specifications regarding ridge caps and starter strips and the flashings, etc. Right? So you have to do your due diligence and get those codes, which they're available in a couple clicks. Leave comments if you need help, and we may even link these up at a later point because we're going to do more videos on the codes. And so, very important. Valleys are another issue. There's a lot of information about valleys and valley lining, and sometimes they don't want to pay for these things. You can Another workaround is to get them to pay for manipulation of the flashing. So labor time, but the flashings have to be dealt with, and that's the crux of the story. But that's what you have here is we show that we have step flashing, valley metal. Um, Other flashing, etc. So we have the ridge caps here, seal and paint the trim, fascia. Okay, front elevator. Okay, so now before, remember, they just had remove and replace siding, and they had detach and reset exterior light fixtures. Well, here's all the missing items. So you have remove the siding, and so instead of just R&R siding, we break it out: remove, 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 replace, replace, replace. You might have noticed we did the same thing in the roof to really show them what they're missing. So it's remove the siding, remove the fan fold insulation, remove house wrap, then remove and replace sheathing. Now, I give you that State Farm, there's no way for them to have known that the sheathing was bad. And you notice that it's non-nailable surface area. Nothing's stated about rot or anything like that. So one of State Farm's and all the carriers, their fallback is, well, we don't pay for rot. May be true, but they also have to pay for a non-nailable surface. So it's kind of two contradicting issues there, and you see this one should win out. Okay, so R&R wrap wood window frames and trim with aluminum. So there you have all your aluminum trim, and then also the moldable tape, the flashing around the trim as well, the windows, etc. So look, we get an Eagle View report typically that shows us all, if it's available, that shows us all of our elevation measurements. And the cool thing about that is it shows the doorways and the windows. So you typically know, if you have small, medium, or large windows, you have a garage door, maybe you might have, other entry doors. And so the trim has to be dealt with on those. And if you have trouble with that, it's, I don't know of any issue areas in the IRC codes that deal with that, but I do know of some in the IECC, the International Energy Conservation Code. And so, like here in Texas, where we are, for example, the governor, a few months back or recently, don't quote me on this, recently, some kind of an executive order, I believe, but the state essentially adopted officially the 2015 IECC. So it's a federal energy code, right? So the energy codes is where you can find a lot of this type information on this page. And so again, if they have the code update or upgrade coverage, they have to pay for that. And so here you have those items, right? All right. And then you notice that there's vinyl actually as the replacement. And that's because the contractor in this case, they weren't going back with the aluminum. Don't ask me why, I have nothing to do with that. But this is us being, full disclosure. We're not going back with the aluminum. See, so you would think that our price would be lower, right? Because we're not going back with aluminum, we're going back with vinyl. But you see, even with going back vinyl premium grade, um, all of these other items made the price go up significantly. Moving on, pretty much the same thing on the right elevation, same pattern here. I don't see anything different. I'll point it out if I do see something different. And then we have the rear elevation. Again, the same thing. And I should say also that there was extensive photos with this job, a lot of really, really good photos. So, and that could be the big difference too. So like when I said earlier, they have to pay to replace the flashing, like if it's damaged. But you can make that case to a state farm adjuster and they'll say, okay, do you have photos of it? No, we don't. Okay, well, we can't pay for it. So I mean, I think the best way to do it is to submit your estimate before the build to get these issues out on the table beforehand. So if they say, do you have photos of where's the hail damage flashing? Well, I didn't say it was hail damage. I just said it was damage. What kind of damage? Well, it's going to be damage during the tear off, or we'll see the bent up metal, during the tear off. Okay, well, you have to send us photos on the back end. So that's kind of a little process that you have to kind of go through there, and it makes it easier to do it if you have those photos. So if you don't get the photos, I'm just telling you, more times than not, it's going to be turned down. So I'm a proponent that you go and get and replace all of the metals, all the flashing, everything on the system. You replace it. You have to warranty the system. You have to stand behind it. You don't want to take chances. Leaks come through flashing issues a lot, around vents and chimneys and valleys. That's where you have a lot of leak issues. You don't want to come back anyway. So just do it right. Do it 100% right. But get the documentation, get the photos. So if that involves hiring, if you don't want to hire a project manager in addition to your sales guy or whatever it is, don't think of it as a project manager. Think of it as a professional photographer, hiring them to go out and simply to get the right photos. But I think you'll see right away that if you made that policy, if you instituted that policy into your company, like company wide, you'll see a significant increase in your overall bottom line, like your overall profitability. So, all right, you have the next elevation, I believe it is here. Same stuff here, detach and reset meter base. So instead of the hours that they wanted to pay, we put that in. The conduit hanger for support. These are a couple additional items that they sometimes pay for, sometimes don't. Garage roof, pretty much a repeat of before, with the exception of we have additional layers, actual 3 layers on this. Let me just show you that valley lining that I noticed. Valley lining, number 75, 39.66 square feet. You notice that there's an asterisk because it was changed out a little bit. Instead of being called the valley metal, in this instance, it was called valley lining. And it was done that way to fit the codes better. So, and on the codes, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. Essentially, the argument is that State Farm cannot force ABC Construction or whoever it is to go out and break the law. You cannot go and be forced to violate the law. And that's what the IRC and that's what the IECC is. And it especially is if the state where you're working has adopted any of those codes. And it even more so especially is if the municipality where you're working, the city and or county, has adopted the states and or the international the IRC or the IECC. Those codes are law. You can't be forced to break the law. So, we won't get into too much how to, like all the strategies involved beyond that. And there is a lot more to it. Just keep watching these videos. But presenting that to the insurance company, it's a matter of just simply documenting it, showing how everything fits together. It said the code says damage, you show them the damage, so you have your documentation, show them which code it is, show them where that municipality or that state or the combination of the two have adopted that specific code. And I'm just telling you, you would think that the insurance adjuster would already should know that, right? And you're right, they should already know that, but they just don't, right? So you're working with most of the time an inside adjuster at State Farm, and no telling where they are physically when you're talking to them, no telling how many states that they're dealing with, how many claims, and there's probably dealing with a number of different states. And so, and even if they do know it, it's kind of a game where they make you get the documentation and present it to them. But once you do, it doesn't have to be that extensive. It could be a snippet of the code, an explanation of where it's found, with a snapshot of a piece of flashing that has a bend. You know what I mean? So it's very, once you go through and actually do the due diligence and present it to them, it becomes very easy from there. Most of the time. It's not a perfect science, but most of the time. One other thing I noticed here is the overhead door weather stop. Another little trick there, along with that still flashing moldable tape again. But remove and replace fan fold insulation, house wrap. Most of the time, those are code, and sometimes IRC required as well, or IECC. So right elevation here, rear elevation. We're just dealing with the garage. What's left over of that. I'll just skim through it for time purposes. The permit, always put your permit cost on there and attach an image of it at the end. But dumpsters, a larger dumpster, and the two ladders with the jacks. Now the larger dumpster and the two ladder, I mean, you have to, if it's high, you got to have it there. The dumpster has to be there. You noticed before they had a very small dumpster, and their thinking is, well, the tear off of the roof already includes the dumpster. And that's a common error that people make a lot, because yes, it says includes haul off, but of what? Of the shingles and the felt. And again, I'll give you the nails. But that's the only thing that it includes. It doesn't include any of the decking. If you have decking, it doesn't include any of the siding. It doesn't include, and by the way, it doesn't include on the roof any of the drip edge, the valley, the vents, the accessories, the chimney flap. Think about that for a second. They don't want to pay you for the removal of all those items like we talked about before, but they also don't want to give you an additional amount for more of a dumpster, because they're saying that the tear off of the shingles includes all of the waste costs, and it includes all of the accessories and everything on the whole entire job. So that's faulty. But you have to go and show them and do the work and do the due diligence. The devil's in the details. So, all right, moving forward. Labor minimums automatically spit out of the estimate at the end. You could turn those on or off. Okay, so here you can see we have overhead and profit in our estimate, and we have a total of 60,669.51. All right, now, second State Farm insurance estimate. So most of the time we have an original, we have our estimate, then we have the revised insurance estimate. In this case, we have a second revised and then a final revised after that, because this one wasn't quite good enough. So let's just go through here. This is their cover stuff, like sample page that they always send. Again, we've taken out the sensitive information. You can see that their second estimate is 39,210.91 plus this here. So it was like 41 something. Let's go back. This is a recap. Remember, it started at 26,676. And see if they have a grand total at the end. Can make a summary there. There it is. 41,489.69. Now let's look at the details. Okay. The roof. So you can see that they did not up it to include the removal of the drip edge and the removal of the ice and water. I mean, the removal of the other items, chimney flashing, pipe jack, etc. Nothing really changed much on the roof except for they upped it to the 30-pound felt. They included the permit. They should have changed much more. In this case, they didn't. We got our changes in other places. All right. And then now I want to do a quick full disclosure here. There was asbestos siding on this job. And so our client, the contractor, is a little bit of a collaborative effort here. They had details on the asbestos siding that they got into State Farm, separate from our work with State Farm. So you'll see some of the revision items have the asbestos siding in there. We didn't want to include it in our estimate. We didn't think it was a good idea because when, looking at the photos, they didn't take the proper precautions, like the safety precautions, to contain that stuff. So we thought it would be somewhat ridiculous to send them the photos to just expose that. They disagreed and did it on their own. We let them do it, but they approved it. So anyway, so you'll see the asbestos siding in here as well. That's not something that we got included, but our client, the contractor, did that, and it was approved as well. So good for them. We got a number of other items in here, such as the window wraps, ladder jacks. You'll see a bunch of different revisions. There were 2 rounds of revisions made by 2 different adjusters, and we redacted out the adjuster name. But if you saw it there, it would make much sense because it shows the sequence. Remove and replace house wrap, fan fold insulation, all that was included. Same thing with the rest of the house and garage. There were some changes made with the siding, ended up being aluminum, I believe, on this, which is why it was ended up paying for the aluminum. And that's that. Okay, so the thing that you'll see that and they have the increased cost of compliance, 2278. So, but you'll see that one of the main discrepancies is that overhead and profit is still not here, right? So that's a big difference. So you have the 41,489.69, but no overhead and profit. So huge difference, right? $8,000+. So, and as you'll see, we don't have to go through too much more time for the final because that just didn't sit well with us. We probably could have just let it go at that point. Because they shut it down. They did shut down the overhead and profit, but we went back for another round and got the overhead and profit included. So as you can see there and there, everything else is the same. If you come down here to the bottom line, the big difference, 49,752.93. And as I like to say so often at the end of these videos, the proof is in the results. So again, I hope this helped out a lot. We went from starting out at 26,676, brought it all the way to 41,489, punched it through just one step further to 49,752.93. So if you're having a hard time with State Farm, just know that you don't always have to have a hard time with State Farm. Now, should this have been better? Could it have been better? Absolutely. There's still so many other items that that they still should have paid for. So do we hire an attorney? Do we take it to appraisal? Do we take it to a public adjuster? Do we do any of those things? We could. We probably could get them to pay for the whole thing. Especially with that asbestos issue, we opened up sort of a can of worms there, right? So we have that issue sort of looming. But most of our clients are extremely happy with being able to get results like this. So from 26 to almost $50,000, that's almost twice the cost, twice the approval results. So anyway, I hope this helped out. I hope it added value. Hope you learned something from this. If anything, if you just get to see winning results, you have some reassurance and encouragement that this game works. And I say game because they make it like a game. And you have to always keep your strategies fresh. You have to keep up with what's going on in the industry, and you have to bring all of the fundamentals of your game plan every single time. And once again, thanks so much for watching. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Insurance Restoration Training. Please hit the like button wherever you're watching this video. We'd love to hear your comments. Stay tuned. We're going to have more information coming soon, more of these episodes. We have another 10 episodes that we're releasing shortly. So keep watching, stay tuned, and also stay tuned to information about the codes. So we're going to really dive into these codes more. And we'll talk to you soon.